Hey, I want to welcome you to the daily video here at Hillsboro First. My name is Pastor Derek, and we started this when coronavirus hit, just a lot of extra videos. I may be the only one doing this now on a daily basis, but regardless, I'm enjoying it because I'm going through the Journal of John Wesley, and I guess you are too if you're tuning in. But we're in the year 1741. I have three different accounts from the month of July to share with you today. The first is from Sunday, the 12th, 1741. While I was showing at Charles Square what it is to do justly and to love mercy and to walk humbly with our God, a great shout began. Many of the rabble had brought an ox, which they were vehemently laboring to drive in among the people. But their labor was in vain, for in spite of them all, he ran round and round one way and the other, and at length broke through the midst of them clear away, leaving us calmly rejoicing and praising God. You know, every once in a while I read an account from John Wesley's life, and I think that didn't happen. There's no way that happened. But he's meeting outside in Charles Square when those who oppose him try to break up the whole thing with an ox. I can't say that anyone's done that to me in a sanctuary in any of my churches. I've thought unkind things about some of my parishioners sometimes, but nothing like this. So they really came after John Wesley and thought they were going to break up the whole meeting, and yet God was faithful throughout and kind of turned the ox against them. And then we come to the next day, Monday, July 13. I returned to Oxford and on Wednesday rode to Bristol. My brother, I found, was already gone to Wales, so that I came just in season, and that indeed on another account also, for a spirit of enthusiasm was breaking in upon many who charged their own imaginations on the will of God, and that not written, but impressed on their hearts. If these impressions be received as the rule of action instead of the written word, I know nothing so wicked or absurd, but we may fall into in that without remedy. So if you can cut through the Old English, here's what he's saying. The believers there that he was meeting with were saying, the Spirit of God told me this. And it has the same kind of authority as the written Word of God. If it's in contradiction to the Word of God, well, the Spirit told me this. And so what John Wesley calls this is their own imaginations. And for him, this was nonsense. There was no Wesleyan quadrilateral, according to John Wesley, where there's these even sources of inspiration. No, it was about the written word of God. And he says, if you were to equate your imagination, your own reasoning power with the written word of God, he says, I know of nothing so wicked or absurd. And then finally, I'd like to read from later on that month. And this really shows the kind of human side of John Wesley, who got really bent out of shape by some people. Wednesday, the 22nd. At repeated instance of some that were there, I went over to Abington. I preached on what must I do to be saved. Both the yard and house were full, but so stupid, senseless a people, both in a spiritual and natural sense, I scarce ever saw before. Yet God is able of, quote, these stones to raise up children to Abraham, unquote. So here he is. The place is packed, but he's kind of unimpressed with how unresponsive the congregation is to the word of God, and calls them some pretty horrific names. I have to remind myself, this is the private journal of John Wesley. I don't know if maybe he did know eventually it would be published, but I probably have thought and said similar things before, but have kept them to myself. But I think it just shows the human side of John Wesley, that he was just unimpressed with that congregation that day. And he thought, well, if God can raise up stones to be children of Abraham, then maybe he can raise up these stones as well. So with those encouraging and uplifting thoughts, I'd like to close today. Thank you so much for joining me for the daily video. You know, John Wesley was a true character and one that I want to continue to learn from. Thanks for joining me.